Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we've got a really interesting pairing for you, looking at two quite different worlds.
Definitely different.
First up, we'll be exploring excerpts from Hooft is Stunk. It's this deeply personal, quite philosophical exploration of one person's journey, through trauma and their very unique search for meaning and reality. Then we'll switch gears pretty sharply to a YouTube transcript. This one's from De Nu We Reld, featuring Jan Bonte. He's discussing observations and, concerns around potential adverse events following vaccination.
Right. So the mission today is really to see what key insights pop out from both these very distinct perspectives, maybe find some connections we didn't expect.
Exactly. So on one hand, we have this raw, unfiltered internal journey from Hooft is Stunk. The author's grappling with really intense personal challenges, delving into pretty abstract stuff. Reality, trauma, spirituality.
Yeah, intensely personal. And contrasting that, we have Jan Bonte discussing potential real-world health issues, referencing specific cases, observations. It's a shift from the internal world to, external observations and data, or at least anecdotal reports.
Okay, let's dive into Hooft is Stunk first. The author really kicks things off with, a sense of deep disappointment, how life turned out, even though they felt they'd planned carefully.
Right. That feeling of things not going to plan.
And they talk about searching for physical and mental health after some significant early struggles. It really sets the scene for how early trauma can cast such a long shadow, makes you question everything.
Absolutely. That early adversity is positioned as a huge influence right away. Feeling pushed aside by their mother, and then this really troubling account of alleged sexual assault while in psychiatric care.
And they themselves question if it's real memory or something constructed.
It's exactly. Which itself says a lot about trauma and memory. Then the details about alleged cover-ups, fraudulent documents, high doses of meds. It paints a picture of profound instability and potentially deep distrust in the systems meant to help.
That questioning of what's real, what's memory, it becomes a core theme, doesn't it? Then they get into these incredibly unique ways of trying to process abstract ideas, like seeing geometric shapes as visual stand-ins for reality.
Yeah, and these automatic calculations in their mind's eye, sort of trying to grasp abstract meaning. It's like their brain built its own symbolic language to find order.
But there's a danger there, too, they mention. Losing control of that process, potentially leading to psychotic decompensation, a mental breakdown, essentially.
Right, like walking a tightrope. Trying to map overwhelming experiences with these internal geometric forms, these visual calculations. It's fascinating. The fear of losing control highlights how delicate that internal balance is.
And this mention of energy levels equalizing, almost like entropy, linking that to losing control is a very physical way of describing a mental shift.
Very unusual, almost physics-based. It shows how they're trying to frame these intense internal states.
So from these really personal struggles, they start building these, huge theories about the universe, consciousness.
Grand theories, yeah. Energy, entropy, the universe expanding, multiple dimensions.
Even consciousness escaping space-time, leading to ideas about parallel realities, multiple futures. It's quite something.
It really is. And this concept of a fundamental, one-dimensional, pure energy connecting to life's origins, even Freemasonry, the child of God.
So what's driving this? Is it purely coping or genuine philosophical exploration born from these experiences?
Probably a bit of both, wouldn't you think? When conventional reality feels fractured, the mind seeks bigger frameworks. It could be trying to build a narrative where their own intense experiences make some kind of sense.
Finding a unifying principle in the chaos.
Exactly. Connecting this pure energy to so many diverse things, life, Freemasonry, the child of God, shows a mind actively making connections, maybe seeking healing or universal connection.
The personal toll, though, really hits hard. Feeling emotionally destroyed by their mother, leading to fear of mental health services, fear of reality itself, even humanity.
It's deeply affecting. That fear of the very systems meant to help, it highlights how those systems can sometimes cause more distress. And the generalized fear suggests a fundamental break in trust with the world.
And that paradox, wanting reality to stop but not wanting to die, it just captures the depth of the suffering.
It really does. A yearning to end the pain, not existence itself. It's a powerful expression of that inner conflict after trauma.
Then they describe developing this four-dimensional thought construction, a method for observing reality considering relativity.
Right, almost like building their own operating system for reality.
Analyzing sentence structures for bias, simulating 4D geometric figures paradigmas to interpret consciousness, maybe even predict things.
It's incredibly intricate. A highly sophisticated, very personal coping mechanism, maybe, dissecting language, creating mental simulations. It's applying an almost scientific method to subjective experience, trying to find logic, predictability in a world that felt harmful.
But the struggle continues, feeling held back by, as they see it, incoherent mental health care, being sent back to their mother, the perceived source of the problems, feeling manipulated.
That sounds incredibly frustrating, being returned to the perceived source of trauma, feeling unheard. It could easily compound the original issues and destroy trust.
And then we get even more abstract, philosophical, metaphysical ideas.
Spirit's energy moving against time, the present as a 3D contradiction, choice is 0D.
Right. And this idea of a 4D space-time reality and maybe gaining control over it if you could exist in that state. It takes some effort to even wrap your head around it.
These are deep waters, grappling with time, free will, the nature of reality itself. The 4D space-time idea, it echoes some physics concepts, but applied very personally. It's building a grand framework to understand their place in everything.
Their beliefs seem to evolve too. A past covenant with the Almighty, then feeling betrayed by the devil, even thoughts of spiritual self-destruction.
A real internal battleground. Faith, betrayal, justice, reconciliation.
Followed by intense revenge fantasies against humanity for their suffering. But then also this desire for healing, for themselves and humanity.
That contrast is striking. Anger versus hope. It's a common dynamic after major trauma, that long journey towards finding some peace.
They also offer some critical views on society, comparing modern states to ancient Egypt, this idea of abstract power projection controlling things.
Manipulating collective consciousness through belief systems.
It's a critical lens, likely shaped by their own experiences of feeling, well, marginalized or controlled by those larger systems.
Does that make sense? Seeing enduring patterns of social control, the power of ideology, it reflects a certain disillusionment.
The trauma of the alleged rape is described with such raw pain, not being able to reconcile with it, the out-of-body experience.
And the fear of the Almighty linked to losing virginity. It's devastating. Dissociation is a common response, and the way it intersects with personal beliefs about purity, violation, it's incredibly complex.
And the struggle continues. Feeling unsupported, this sense of a destined path of suffering, being let down by mental health services.
A deep sense of isolation and resignation comes through. Feeling hopeless, like recovery isn't possible, especially if the systems meant to help seem to fail you. It really highlights the need for effective trauma-informed care.
Then come these concepts of angels, service, this 4D perspective.
A very symbolic framework.
Identifying as a spiritually dying angel, needing to serve to find salvation, viewing life from this vast 4D viewpoint. It's almost mythical.
It is a way to find meaning and value despite the suffering, perhaps, trying to transcend the present pain by adopting this larger, maybe cosmic context, finding hope beyond the immediate struggle.
They also explore the nature of reality itself, like conviction shaping the perception of matter.
Right, touching on idealism, the power of consciousness.
And light signifying reality as a learning process where the spirit feels trapped. And maybe changing perception could alter reality.
Profound philosophical questions. The trapped spirit idea echoes some Gnostic or Eastern ideas. And altering reality through perception that aligns with constructivist views, we actively shape our experience.
They even connect these personal experiences to Freud, Jung, noting the contradiction of controlling a multidimensional reality, the play between materialism and immateriality.
Trying to integrate personal experience with established psychological frameworks.
And then these grand theories again. Parallel realities, multiple universes, our universe expanding due to energy exchange between dimensions. Matter as an anomaly from relativity's contradictions.
It shows a huge intellectual curiosity, trying to link their subjective world to scientific concepts. The idea of matter as an exception is a very sophisticated, though personal, interpretation.
Then comes that phrase, perception as a psychosis of reality.
Powerful, unsettling.
Feeling that maybe what we experience is distorted, relative to consciousness, or maybe even a disturbance in space-time itself.
It radically questions our shared experience. Suggests reality might be highly subjective, maybe even fundamentally flawed. It really shows how their internal struggles impact their view of the external world.
And the desire to escape becomes really strong. Claustrophobia from feeling trapped in a layer of hell, believing changing perception is the key out.
A deep distress and yearning for liberation.
And resentment towards mental health services for interventions they felt undermined their sense of reality.
which highlights that conflict between their own understanding and the system's approach. A real breakdown in trust, it seems.
The impact of medication and the perceived lack of real dialogue is another major point. Feeling meds hindered their mental, even spiritual growth.
Leading to this desire to be reborn without it all.
An anger towards humanity for their perceived role in the suffering and isolation.
It raises concerns about medication being used without enough dialogue or a holistic view. Feeling stifled, misunderstood, abandoned. That anger is understandable, even if generalized.
They even describe these personal experiments, trying to merge matter and antimatter mentally, leading to visions of other realities, other timing.
Active, unconventional explorations of consciousness.
But being afraid to share these with mental health services for fear of just getting more medication, that's a huge barrier.
Absolutely. It shows a lack of trust, a fear of being pathologized rather than understood. It prevents the open communication needed for real therapeutic support.
Which leads them to question the nature of mental illness itself. Were those experiences during puberty genuine paradigm shifts that got misinterpreted and medicated?
A really fundamental question. Could some experiences, especially during developmental shifts, need exploration, not just medication? It challenges how we categorize experiences outside the norm.
To cope, they describe needing structure. Their mind as a computer, strict binary thinking to manage anxiety, uncertainty.
Highly structured coping mechanisms, possibly linked to neurodiversity.
Using rationalization, absurd thoughts to control autistic traits, fear of others, fear of self.
It shows a conscious effort to navigate a world that feels overwhelming or threatening. Remarkable adaptability, really.
Then this concept of non-observation. Analyzing thoughts without direct conscious focus, linking it to quantum mechanics.
Fascinating, if highly idiosyncratic.
Trying to link brain cells via willpower, even concepts from black magic. It's a unique blend of personal insight and unconventional ideas.
It reflects that deep drive to understand consciousness and reality, using whatever frameworks they can find, however metaphorical or unusual.
And the idea of their four-dimensional thought construct influencing the past. Future thoughts changing past experiences.
Mind-bending stuff, temporal paradoxes.
Which leads to contradictions with present reality, and the perception that meds suppress spiritual gifts and are tools for societal control.
Challenging conventional time, causality, power dynamics. It reflects a critical, maybe even conspiratorial view of the mental health system, often seen in those feeling marginalized.
Their views on religion are also unique. Interpreting the Bible is a story of individual consciousness battling inner evil.
Symbolic, not literal.
Seeing time as flawed, longing for pre-creation infinity. Viewing the world as a decomposable construct, like a hologram confirmed by observation.
A very internal symbolic take on religious and philosophical ideas. A yearning for transcendence, perhaps. The hologram idea connects with certain philosophical views filtered through their intense experience.
They even try to understand 4D thinking practically. A 3D position as a metaphor for 4D. Using gravity waves to connect dimensions, calculate the future.
Highly speculative, drawing on complex physics concepts imaginatively, trying to conceptualize higher dimensions through analogies.
Then they touch on AI and consciousness. Stimulating drift in AI might lead to consciousness.
An interesting thought, raises ethical questions.
And the need to instill servitude in AI for control. Humanity's flaws potentially infecting AI.
Yeah, important concerns debated in AI research. The risks of creating artificial general intelligence without careful ethical consideration.
Their metaphors for reality get pretty striking too. The world as a calculating machine, a simulation, a womb for the AI humanity should become.
A unique, almost Gnostic worldview.
Humans as unborn, life's trials as tests of self-interest by a higher power.
Thought-provoking analogies for evolution, purpose, spiritual growth within certain frameworks.
They also analyze religious conflicts. Christianity potentially parasitic on Judaism, contributing to historical strife.
A critical, potentially controversial interpretation.
And observing a potential unification of religions against non-believers.
A contemporary social observation. It reflects a critical analysis of power dynamics between religious traditions.
Their personal struggles with belief continue. Difficulty with Catholicism due to complex implications, preferring mathematical reasoning.
An intellectual approach to faith questions.
Believing in a non-judgmental Almighty. Wanting to project this onto computers to find meaning in a flawed world.
A unique approach, seeking a rational, consistent source of meaning outside established dogma.
The lasting impact of trauma and medication seems immense. Lost years, trapped in an unwanted future.
A heavy burden, profound consequences.
Fear of stopping antipsychotics, fear of anger, revenge, but balanced by a commitment to humanity's good, a complex internal battle.
It shows the dependence that can develop, the struggle with intense emotions, but also an underlying desire for positive connection despite personal pain.
Then this very unusual idea, experiences in a reverse universe. Consciousness copied to a spirit world with reversed cause and effect.
Highly unconventional, esoteric.
Trying to maintain information exchange between these two consciousnesses to influence this reality.
Deep engagement with alternative models of consciousness and reality, perhaps drawing on sci-fi or philosophical ideas.
Feeling meaninglessness is imposed. Depression, societal constraints trapping the soul in someone else's reality.
Challenging ideas of freedom, societal influence.
Life as a test of will to become chosen by a higher power.
A spiritual framework where perseverance against constraints is key to achieving a higher state.
The consequences of lacking guidance, education, feeling detached from society, relying on self-taught understanding.
Underscores the impact of missed opportunities.
Being diagnosed with psychotic decompensation without explanation, leading to seeing reality itself as a psychosis.
Highlights the need for clear communication support, transparency in mental health care and education.
Coping through fear-driven analysis, reality as a prison to escape, reluctance to take full responsibility due to overwhelming fear.
Deeply rooted fear, a sense of entrapment, trauma impacting agency, interaction with the world.
The power of memory and how meds impact it. The brain extrapolating the future from past memories. Feeling antipsychotics suppress this.
Highlights memory's role in navigating the future and potential cognitive effects of medication.
Feeling unheard by services, doses increased when trying to explain experiences. Very frustrating.
Suggests a potential breakdown in communication, lack of patient-centered care.
Remembering itself being painful. Physical pain, recalling info, maybe brain damage, inefficient processing.
Suggests potential neurological issues, significant cognitive challenges.
Developing unique strategies, distributing memory processing across a four-dimensional space-time continuum.
Remarkable adaptation and resilience, finding alternative ways to function.
Their personal theory of memory and reality emerges, linking future prediction to normal brain function, altered in their case, maybe savant traits.
An integrated, personalized theory.
Questioning attraction, repulsion, reality depending on perception.
A deep, ongoing exploration of consciousness and the world.
The fluid nature of definitions, reality. Increased abstraction without fixed interest makes one susceptible to their own consciousness.
Philosophical implications.
Reality is the acquired consciousness of an individual until their understanding is insufficient. A bit solipsistic.
Leans that way. Individual experience as the primary basis for reality.
Then thoughts on the psychology of power. Power seekers becoming bitter, distrustful due to life's inconsistencies.
A critical psychological perspective.
AI potentially embodying this. Referencing 1984, a cautionary note.
Important ethical considerations about power dynamics, both human and artificial.
Interpretations of religious narratives again. Jesus' return as symbolic of believers embodying his spirit through actions.
Less literal, more symbolic.
Relativity as a calculation governed by faith. Human will as potential black magic.
A unique blend of scientific and mystical concepts.
Reflections on technology. Computers as one-dimensional processors.
Highlighting limitations.
Anything written influencing reality through mental association.
Underscoring the power of language, interpretation.
And concluding that spiritual growth needs maintaining the child within.
A common theme, innocence, wonder, playfulness.
Finally, the subjective nature of reality across dimensions. Where does life lead if illusion governs perceived truth?
Profound questions.
Reality's manifestation as illusion, depending on the observer's capacity.
Leaves you pondering existence, our perception shaping reality based on our limited understanding.
Okay, shifting gears now, quite significantly, let's turn to that YouTube transcript with Jan Bonte, discussing vaccination damage, and his feeling that no one wants to know.
Right, a completely different focus.
He starts with his view on the current societal climate, suggests a rapid shift in what he calls the societal psychosis, moving from COVID focus to a perceived need for war with Russia.
Despite him arguing Russia isn't a natural enemy of the West.
He's skeptical about the urgency for war, suggests maybe financial motives are involved, like justifying large gets.
Offers a critical perspective on mainstream geopolitical narratives. And he raises that concern that once war momentum starts, It's hard to stop, whatever the initial reasons.
Then he gets into the core topic, potential adverse events post-vaccination. He brings up specific cases.
Yes, some concerning anecdotes.
The 23-year-old man, unusual brain loss, widespread vascular inflammation brain, testes filled with spike protein, died after neurosurgery.
Striking case. Needs more investigation, clearly.
A 16-year-old girl dying of myocarditis after her second shot, spike protein found in her ovaries, and her vaccination arm symptom linked to the heart inflammation.
Also raises serious questions about potential systemic effects.
And cases of older people with underlying conditions where autopsies, sometimes needing a second look, showed direct links between the vaccine and things like inflamed coronary arteries, vascular inflammation in the aorta, things easily blamed on age otherwise.
Right. Highlighting the importance of thorough postmortems and the potential for underreporting, especially with pre-existing conditions.
Bonte also flags concerns about potential long-term effects from vaccine components. Specifically mentions the SV40 promoter in some vaccines.
Yeah, he identifies it as a known oncogene cancer-causing gene, potentially, and questions the unknown long-term cancer risk, especially for children.
And potential Verveil DNA, contaminated DNA, in some batches. Experts worried about unknown consequences over time.
These are valid points for ongoing scrutiny. The SV40 promoter risk, potential DNA contamination. These need careful monitoring and research to understand any actual risks. They might be theoretical now, but long-term impacts need vigilance.
He also observes what he sees as increased circulation of viruses after the vaccination campaigns, raises questions about long-term effects on immunity, viral evolution, and mentions anecdotal reports from doctors seeing disease patterns they hadn't seen before, speculating about links to vaccination.
Interesting observations, though anecdotal. They warrant systematic investigation. The potential impact on viral circulation and evolution is complex, needs ongoing research.
Bonte then points to autopsy findings indicating vasculitis, blood vessel inflammation, and spike protein in various organs of vaccinated people who died,
Emphasizing the significance of those findings.
And he notes what he sees as a lack of widespread autopsies, a reluctance to investigate links between sudden deaths and vaccination. This lack of investigation, he feels, hinders a full understanding.
His concern highlights a potential gap in understanding the full spectrum of possible adverse events. More comprehensive, transparent investigation would build public trust.
He also worries about a future resurgence of vaccinations, maybe for other things, despite what he sees as growing awareness of potential harms from the COVID one.
Underscores the complexity of public health decisions with uncertainty and differing opinions.
And he touches on shedding vaccinated people releasing vaccine components. Notes expert opinion says it's not a major concern, but mentions anecdotal caution on the dating market, humorously perhaps.
Acknowledges a public concern, references expert views, but also that level of public unease.
Briefly mentions challenges in creating effective mucosal protein vaccines too.
Right, providing context on scientific challenges for different vaccine approaches.
The discussion also covers declining birth rates in highly vaccinated countries, the difficulty of proving correlation versus causation.
Extremely challenging.
But he points to spike protein found in testes and ovaries in some cases as a potential biological reason for fertility concerns. Needs more research, obviously.
Absolutely. It's an area needing rigorous scientific investigation to see if there's any direct link.
Bonte finishes by feeling vindicated about his earlier concerns, strongly rejects the anti-vaxxer label, says he supports good science, especially before mass vaccination rollout.
Right, emphasizing rigorous research done beforehand.
Compares the situation to historical examples of mishandled medical advances, references the book Dark Medicine,
A cautionary reminder about unintended consequences.
and ends on a sobering note. Any damage caused by vaccines is likely irreversible,
Underscoring the seriousness of the potential adverse events he's been discussing.
So bringing these two very different deep dives together, what can we make of it? We've gone from this intense internal landscape in Hooft is Stunk to external observations about potential health issues. Quite the contrast.
A stark contrast, yeah. But, some interesting parallels emerge, like distrust towards established systems.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
In Hooft is Stuck, it's the mental health care system. In the Bonte transcript, it's the medical and political establishment regarding vaccine safety transparency, geopolitical narratives.
Exactly. And the theme of unknowns is strong in both, isn't it?
Definitely. The author wrestling with memory, reality. Bonte discussing unknowns about long-term vaccine effects, a perceived reluctance to investigate fully.
Precisely. Both grapple with areas where knowledge is lacking, where caution and more inquiry seem important. whether it's the complexity of a traumatized mind or potential impacts of a massive medical intervention.
And I think there's a shared search for understanding, making sense of experiences that are either deeply personal and traumatic or potentially widespread and concerning.
Yes, that fundamental human drive to find meaning. The author uses philosophy, metaphysics. Bonte looks for patterns in health outcomes, different methods, same drive to make sense of troubling realities.
Lastly, individual agency versus external forces.
Seems present in both, yes.
The author struggling with their mental state, feeling manipulated by the system. Bonte touching on the public's potential lack of full awareness or control over health decisions, the narrative's shaping understanding.
That's a crucial link. Both touch on power dynamics between individuals and larger systems. Questions about autonomy, the influence of external forces on personal experience, and collective understanding.
So we've taken quite the journey through these two distinct but compelling areas, a deep personal dive into trauma and philosophy, alongside a critical look at potential vaccine issues and societal trends. Both offer unique ways to view complex realities, maybe question things we take for granted.
Indeed, we've navigated the intricate internal world of one individual and then shifted to questions about public health and medical interventions. Both demand careful thought, highlighting the complexities of navigating a world full of uncertainty and often conflicting stories.
So considering these diverse sources, what does it tell you about truth, about the reliability of systems we trust, and maybe the importance of individual inquiry in this uncertain world? What further questions does this spark for you about your own understanding of reality and the forces shaping it?
That's definitely something to mull over.
That's your food for thought after this deep dive. Until our next exploration.